Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're in the process of looking at spiritual timekeeping. Some people call it scriptural timekeeping. But I want to say that a lot of people have got upset with me over the past because they thought that I was trying to say this is the right way and you're on the wrong way. Let me say before I start that whatever Yahweh has you on, whatever path He has you on, that's what you need to walk until you see a continuance of that truth in Scripture. It's what I tell my friends that don't eat clean. And I know several people who are Orthodox that don't eat clean. I was at a conference and giving away my teachings on DVDs, and the guy next to me was an Orthodox Jew, and he goes, "Tom, would you like a sandwich?" Well, you know, in that setting, you think you're going to be safe, right?
Wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Hence the saying I came up with, sweating like a Jew eating a ham sandwich, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
And this guy, he handed me a ham sandwich.
Wow. Was this at like something to do with a religion conference or something? That's just weird.
Yeah, he was eating one, and he handed me one, and I said, "Brother, this looks like ham." And he goes, "Well, it is." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, how can that be?" He said, "Well, Yeshua liberated us, right?
that's a common thought.
Liberated us
Yep.
so we can eat ham sandwiches." I didn't ask him what other glitches was in his theology because he thought he was correct. How many know you cannot teach somebody who does not want to be taught?
Nope.
You can't do it. The best thing to do is not even try, but recognize where they're at and just love them right there and pray for them. And there are a lot of people out there like that. I mean, during the epidemic, the fake pandemic, people who were very educated, I mean, doctors, got on board and drank the tea.
My whole family with multiple degrees among them all were like just crazy.
Yeah. And especially from your family or like my family, the Orthodox, you would think that they should understand.
Well, my family's not observant.
Uh,
Well, the really Orthodox in New Jersey did not conform, and that caused a whole bunch of ruckus in that town. Because they owned most of that town, and they were running around unvaccinated, and the other people were mad, but nobody could push them to do it.
right.
But like, my mother's a nurse, like, you think she would like,
You would think she would know.
no, she really thought, she was very upset because she thought I was gonna die because I didn't get the vaccine. Like, she was beside herself over it.
In tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had we had nurses that worked for hospice, and even the medical directors, the doctors who worked in emergency room, and they should be seeing this stuff, right? Drank the Kool-Aid. So at that point, you just gotta be quiet. During that time, I learned a lot from Yeshua when he was on trial. First with the Sanhedrin, and then later with Pilate. And in his trial with Pilate, there was a point where he just fell silent. Why did Yeshua fall silent?
Because they didn't want to be taught.
That's exactly right. They didn't want to be taught. So you have to, if you want to expand your understanding, whether you agree or you don't agree, you have to allow that teaching and not just dismiss it off the top. You got to at least hear it out. And even like the people that believe in pre-trib rapture, I hear them out because I want to understand where they're coming from and why they believe what they believe.
Oh, it's just so hard.
So with that in mind, we'll go to the teaching on the calendar, and I want you to know, unless Yahweh speaks to you and tells you and reveals to you this is from me, keep doing what you're doing, but do it. I tell people all the time, I don't care what day you keep initially,
Keep it.
but keep it. Because in that, there's a lot that Yahweh is trying to teach you. And that goes right in line with him saying to me, you need to learn how to keep it in your heart, Sabbath. You need to learn how to keep Sabbath in your heart before you can ever keep a day. Which is true when you think about it. I want to go back to the part of what we talked about last week. Oh, there it is. In the chiastic pattern. So on day 4 is a very pivotal day. Because one of the things we learn on day 4 is that he made the sun and the moon, the greater lights. One to rule the day, one to rule the night. However, there is on day 1, evening and morning. Day 2, evening and morning. Day 3, evening and morning. How can that be if the sun and the moon weren't even created till day 4?
Does that have to do with Yeshua being the light?
Well, there are, that's close. There's a couple of different names for day 4, like the light is illumination.
Was it the stars?
And the, what's that?
Was it the stars?
The stars. Was it the stars?
The stars divide the day and the night, right? It's interesting. So that should tell us right off the bat that there are pieces that we don't understand in our own minds. We're going to get to this in the slides, but I'll go ahead and tell you that Yom is the Hebrew word we use for day. And it has many meanings. It's the warm hours from another meaning is sunset to sunset. Another meaning that people often discount is a yom is the smallest increment of time based on the words around it, based on context. But we'll get there. So let's take a look again at the chiastic pattern, because this is really hard for people. You want to start reading it for us, Darla?
Then God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night,
Okay, stop.
and let them be for signs and seasons,
Okay.
and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth." And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night.
Okay.
Lesser light to rule the night.
Okay.
He made the stars also.
The purpose of things is to divide the day from the night. It's for signs and seasons, and for days and years. And if we had to list the things to achieve the purpose, according to the scripture, is see the sun, days and years, the moon, signs and seasons, and the stars is to divide the day from the night. And still, we see that B never changes. A changes position, C changes position, but B never changes position. So that means in a chiastic pattern, that means B is the main topic. You see that? Okay. So why does the B remain in the same position? Because it's the important one, right?
Yeah. It's like the anchor.
It's the important idea, and really it is the anchor. And if you think of Torah, let me give you another giant chiastic pattern. Torah is a chiastic pattern that points to Deuteronomy. Why would that big chiastic pattern point to Deuteronomy? It's because Deuteronomy is a recount of Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the important idea. So for time, Yahweh is telling us that the moon is the most important. Why is it the most important?
Because it's like how we count our signs and seasons.
That's, yes, how we count our signs and seasons. The moon is an outward and visible sign, and it is the mark of the Moedim, the appointed times. Let's go to the next slide. Leviticus 23, appointed times.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feast of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts.
Okay, stop for a minute. Does everybody know that the word for feast here in this sentence, both in the beginning of the sentence and at the end of the sentence, does everybody understand that that word is Moedim?
Yes.
We can take a look at it really quick. Let's go to the
Yeah, why not?
interlinear. Here's the feast. It's a moed, which is singular. Moedim is plural. Properly an appointed or fixed time or season. And then again, it's it's at the end of the sentence, and it's the same word, 4150.
6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. These are the feasts of the Lord, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed times.
Okay. Does everybody understand that? Let's go back to up here. That Yahweh says, the feast,
Sorry.
speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the feast of the Lord, of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy, set apart, convocations, gatherings, these are my appointed times. And then verse 3, he says, he goes right into Sabbath. He says, 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest. Why is it a Sabbath of solemn rest? Why is that?
What?
Why is it solemn rest?
Because he rested.
Right, because he rested
Therefore shall we.
on the seventh day.
We shall too.
And so it's like your parent going, you need to do this like I do this. Right? So he's telling us that the seventh day is a rest day. It's a holy convocation, a set apart gathering. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath day of Yahweh in all your dwellings. Now, why do you think he immediately, after he proclaimed that there are appointed times, why do you think he went directly to Sabbath?
It's a it's an important thing.
What's that?
It's an appointed time.
Okay.
It's the most important point in time.
Well,
It ranks up there.
It's up there. You're going to do it most often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Tom, the other thing I'm taking out of this too, there's another message in here too that a lot of people need to listen to. 6 days shall work be done.
Right.
We're designed to work. Why was Adam created? Tend the garden. Not to be hanging out in my parents' basement playing Xbox all day long. No, you shall work. Well, that's their definition of work. Well, I'm kind of getting that message too.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I want you to realize why he says, these are the Moedim of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be set apart gatherings. These are my set apart times. These are my feasts. And then he goes directly into Sabbath, and the reason for that is he just taught them Sabbath. This is all happening on the Exodus trail, right? He just taught them Sabbath. He told them in Exodus 12:2 that this is how you count the Moedim. But when he explained Sabbath to Moses, and Moses related it to Israel, on that first Sabbath, what happened?
Somebody went out to gather firewood?
That's exactly right. There was a guy that left his tent because part of the command was you don't even leave your dwelling. This guy left his tent to gather wood to build a fire. Remember? And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and he said, how long are you going to be defiant to me? And Moshe went, whoa.
Time out.
What?
Back the truck up, dude.
Yeah. And Yahweh said, well, this dude went out of his tent and gathered wood, so I'm going to strike him dead. Pretty severe punishment, right? Do you think everybody else is going to understand how solemn Yahweh thinks Sabbath is if he killed a dude that didn't keep it? Let's say our crowd is camping out. And God forbid Yahweh strikes Stanley down. Or better yet, what if he struck Walter down? Walter is physically fit. He's healthy. But he screwed up and he went and gathered wood, which was disobedient to the command. So Yahweh just dealt with it and struck him dead. Pretty severe, huh?
That's it. I'm not doing anything more.
And I bet you the rest of our group would remember, better not go out of your tent, because remember Walter?
Yeah, he wasn't that bright anyway, so.
So they all got what an appointed time was right here in verse 3. And a lot of people say that verse 3 is a parenthetical statement. Let's look up. Do you have access to the internet? Okay, let's look up in Webster parenthetical statement.
Hey, Pastor, could it be that he's telling if you can't keep the appointed time of the Sabbath, you're not going to be able to do anything else?
Absolutely, Dad.
Yeah. If you can't do this, how can you do that?
Right. Do you want to read what a parenthetical statement is?
Relating to or expressed in a parenthesis. parenthetical, remark, comment, note, one sentence runs, is that explaining what it is? Enclosed in parentheses. Yeah, that was the AI, I don't like AI. Containing parenthesis. So it's just a side note.
It's a statement that gives additional information to the subject being discussed. That's what a parenthetical statement was. If you were writing a paragraph and you needed to put a parenthetical statement in there, you would have the subject, and then to define the subject, you would put open parentheses, the definition, close parentheses. That's why they call it a parenthetical statement, because it gives more information about the subject.
That right there is a really good definition.
Yeah, it's the AI definition. I don't really like them, but parenthetical statement is a word or phrase that explains or qualifies something and is often enclosed in parentheses. Parentheticals are not essential to a sentence, but they can add important information without disrupting the flow.
So if you're saying that statement about the Sabbath is parenthetical, you're saying it's just like an add-on?
Well, that's what some people say, I think is what.
Well,
Right, that,
I think that verse 3 is a parenthetical statement defining his Moedim.
okay.
I think he's saying, these are my Moedims, and he starts out with Sabbath. These are my Moedims, like Sabbath is a Moedim. And you know how strongly I feel about Sabbath, because Walter is not among you anymore.
Bam!
He gets zapped. Right? So the statement about Sabbath is a parenthetical statement trying to explain the importance of set apart times, of Moedim. So, and then he goes in verse 4, then he starts the 7 Moedim. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Shavuot, Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and Tabernacles. And he counts those off. So if we take away what's being said about Sabbath and understand that it's an important Moedim because it defines all the other Moedim. Are you following me?
Yeah, it's like, ooh.
So, in review, the moon is for the appointed times. The sun is for years. Sabbath is an appointed time. And the stars divide the night from the day. Now, here's the interesting thing. Yahweh, let me erase the board. Yahweh says that the calendar has 3 components. So what is the first component?
The moon.
You know?
Sun. What is the second component?
Moon.
Very good.
Stars.
Three.
Stars.
Donuts. I don't know. Well, I can guess too.
That's a good guess. Huh?
So the calendar has three components according to Yahweh. It has the sun, the moon, and the stars. The sun counts off years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And days. Years, the definition for years is one rotation. In other words, there's a point out here that the earth, the little dot, starts at, and it comes all the way around and stops in the same place that it started. That is called a shana, a full rotation of around the sun. How do they know when they get back to the same place?
Equinox.
Yep.
What are those dots?
These are stars.
Come on. Don't make him feel bad about his drawings.
He won't. I just wanted to know.
Right here is the equinox. That's a backward E.
But wait a minute, if the earth is flat,
It can still be a flat, like a record. You're still rotating around.
Yeah, like a frisbee. Man.
No,
Yeah.
it's like an egg.
No, Amber said it's really like an avocado, and now that she said that's all I can see is an avocado.
Yeah, well, that's cute, but it's Shauna 8141. It's in the plural only, and it means a revolution of time. So one time around the moon, and the way that they know that they got around is when the equinox is, and they tell that by a star pattern. And each season has stars, so you know that here's the pattern for this season. It's in the night sky, so this is when the season is. Do you understand? So it is a safety net of getting the Moedim correct. So he made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, A, B, and C. Okay. Now here's the day. Day is Old Testament word 31:17, and it is Yom. That's the way you pronounce that. And it can be from an unused root, meaning to be hot. In other words, the hot hours of a day when the sun's out, or it could be literally from sunrise to sunset, or from one sunset to the next, or it can be a figurative as a space of time defined by an associated term, often used as an adverb. So, people they usually define something by what they know. Right?
Yep.
And what do you know a day is right now?
24 hours.
That's right.
Midnight to midnight.
It's 24 hours from midnight to midnight. The day changes at midnight. That's what we know as part of the calendar, the Gregorian calendar today. And then we take that understanding and we retro it all the way back to the beginning in Genesis.
Well, really, if you look at the associated verbiage around it, in that definition, it is a period of time. More like, a better word for our understanding would be like an eon, or an epic, or an epoch, I guess.
That's right. So, can you leave this and go to the scriptures? Back to Genesis.
I can't do a split screen, I don't know how to do that. Genesis.
1.
1:1?
Yeah, there you go. So, Yahweh said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. Let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth," and it was so. Yahweh made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. I'm going to show you something very interesting. Let's go to the interlinear and find the word for day. It's in verse 16. Yom. You want to read that, Norman?
From an unused root meaning to be hot, it's the same thing. A day as the warm hours, whether literal from sunrise to sunset, or from sunset to the next, or figuratively a space of time defined as an associated term, often used adverb.
So let's go back to the text. So how long is a day?
Until the stars come out.
Okay.
Sun
How
to
long
sunset.
was a day on day 1?
We don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. That's because we didn't have the markers that divided it.
Right. We don't know because we don't have the components of the calendar. The components of the calendar is the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Yep.
Yahweh says there was evening and morning the first day. Let's go up to verse 1.
So that's like, you don't need the sun to have a day, it's kind of like.
No, you do.
You do
For
need
us,
the sun.
not for Yahweh.
Now past day 4, but they did not have the sun on day 1. So that means there's something about evening and morning that is past our understanding. If there's no sun and no moon and no stars, how do you know when evening and morning is?
Have to be God, I guess.
That'd be Elohim.
Yeah, because his thoughts are not our thoughts.
People today say, well, it was 24 hours because that's what a day is. The text didn't say that.
And people also say a day is 1,000 years.
What's that?
And some people say a day is 1,000 years with God, so.
Amen.
Or it could be 10,000, or a billion, or,
His
to
time-
me, that is the big key on how you reconcile the irrefutable proof of the geologic record, the irrefutable proof of rate of decay and those kinds of things that they use to date things. Earth could very well be billions of years old.
It could.
It's just what was the Father's definition of that period of time. When
Absolutely.
he was doing this and when he was doing this.
And he doesn't tell us.
No.
So we got to
But
take
it,
it up.
and that goes back to it's in Proverbs where you started all this is it's God's pleasure to secretize things and it's King's pleasure to search them out.
Absolutely.
He puts it on us to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or to try to gain an understanding of it. And so people that just look at the scripture and like you're saying, define it with their understanding of what a day is, then they blind themselves to the scientific evidence that's around them. And there is a way to reconcile it. You just have to understand that you don't understand God's time.
Right.
That's like trying to have God in the box.
Yeah.
Can't.
That's very well said, Travis.
Good job, Travis.
So here's a piece of theology that I want you to understand. Verse 1, in the beginning Yahweh created the heavens and the earth. In the next sentence, that was right there, is was not a good translation. It's a process. And so the better translation, and we'll take a look at it, is the earth became without form. Let's look at the interlinear on that one. 1961, you want to read that for us?
A primitive root to exist, i.e. be or become, come to pass. Always emphatic, sorry, I can't read. And not a mere copula, I don't even know what that is, or auxiliary.
So it's Hayah, and it means to become. So verse 2 is, and the earth became without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Yahweh Elohim moved on the waters. Okay, let's go back to the text. So, there is a gap in the scriptures, and people either believe it or they don't. But in this sentence, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, that is a complete creation. Eretz is the earth, the firmness with all of its inhabitants. Let's take a look. From an unused root, properly meaning to be firm, the earth at large with all of its inhabitants, or particularly land. So, it is all of its inhabitants, and this is where I think that the inhabitants of the earth that Yahweh was trying to protect Adam from, I think this is where they were created. That's not Homo sapien. Homo sapien came out of the garden, the walled off protected area.
Maybe the dinosaurs too?
Could be. Yep.
Our friend doesn't believe.
So, but there is a gap between the earth being whole with inhabitants in verse 2 became without form and was void.
Well, and then there's nothing saying, there's no indication to me in Scripture that verse 1 was part of the first day.
Right. Absolutely.
Verse
right.
1 just says, hey, at the beginning of things, God created the heavens and the earth and its completeness. And then to me, verse 2 is where it starts, like basically saying, look, dude, before he started this process that we just told you about in verse 1, this is what things were like. It was
Yes.
formless and void. He created the light. He separated the chaos from he spoke
Yes.
illumination into the chaos. Verse 1 is just saying, look, all this stuff below it, this is what came out of it, is the way I read that.
Yeah, and you're right. Let's go back to the text. Actually, the whole scriptures from Genesis 1:2 through Revelation is a commentary on Genesis 1:1. He tells you all the things you need to know about him creating the heavens and the earth. But there is a gap, and it's called the gap theory between verse 1 and verse 2, because in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth, and some translations go ahead and say, and all that is in them. And then something happened, there was an event, and the earth became without form and void. This darkness here, and we'll stop here, but this darkness does not mean the absence of light. Let's go to the interlinear on this. Yep, it is koshek. Word 28:22, it is darkness, but figuratively, look at this: misery, destruction, death, ignorance, and sorrow and wickedness. So, let's go back to the text. The earth was without form, became without form and void, and death, chaos, and suffering was on the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, I'm going to show you that darkness, defined as koshek, does not appear again in the scriptures until the plague of darkness in Egypt. The plague of darkness in Egypt was the plague of koshek. Let's take a look. Let's get the number for koshek. I didn't get it when we were there. 28:22. This is going to take up all the accounts of darkness based on its Strong's number. So we have the accounts in Genesis 1:2 through Genesis 1:18, and then there is nothing until we get to Exodus 21. Let's click on Exodus 21. And the Lord said to Moshe, stretch out thy hand towards heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. So there's no mention after the creation until they were in Mitzrayim, and darkness fell on the face of the earth.
That's fascinating.
Interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll stop there.
You ever have a question?
Oh, okay.
Might be something you're gonna deal with next week. Because it said then he created, let there be light.
He spoke, if you look at the translation there, he spoke illumination into the koshek.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's take a look.
Because that's before the day,
Yes.
and it was light.
No, that's what we're saying, is it's not really light, it's illumination. It's
Yeah,
That was it.
illumination into the chaos, established order over the chaos.
Yeah, so light there in verse 3 is Yahweh's illumination.
Okay.
It's not the sun, but it's Yahweh's illumination.
I'm gonna go back down to this one to eight.
Why don't they just say that?
So you can see,
Light and the difference.
okay,
Okay.
different. So,
39:70.
so it's a different word.
Okay,
So that word is different.
that's helpful, because I was like, wait a second.
Than that one.
So
Yeah.
Travis is exactly right. So, or is the illumination of Yahweh, and he ordered his illumination into the time of Koshek,
Okay.
into the death, chaos, and everything. Good question. Any other questions?
There's so much to Bible study.
There it is.
So
Yep.
much. We're in Genesis.
Okay.
In the beginning, that's okay. I had to take remedial math 3 times anyway before I passed.